Hi guys, this is part 2 of the Tiburon Ridge on location photo that I did recently. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Lightroom and how I use Lightroom. I'm also going to talk about Lightroom Mobile. I'm going to go through how I set Lightroom Mobile up and how I use Lightroom Mobile when I'm out and about. I think it's a brilliant tool to use. I definitely recommend it. You can get some great work done on here that you don't actually have to be sat at your computer, so it makes a really big difference to being able to look at your photos. I'm also going to talk about prints. I love printing photos. It's a real passion of mine. It's why I really do photography, really. I want to print them and show them either in an exhibition or on the wall. So I'm going to talk through this photo here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how I produced this photo. So let's go over to Lightroom. Okay, here we are in Lightroom. First of all, I'm going to show you how I set up my folders within Lightroom. I have one collection for all my Lightroom photos, and I've had that collection since 2002. It does have some performance issues, but not too many, and it seems to work okay for me. So I order my photos by year. So you can see here 2016, and then I order them by quarter, and in each quarter I have a folder for that shoot. So if I go into Q1 2017, you can see all the photos that I took in Q1 2017 split into the various folders of those shoots. So if I go to the one that I shot in the last video, which is Tiburon Ridge vlog, then you can see that these are the photos, and I'm going to go through these in a minute. Before I do that, the other thing to mention is I use Lightroom Mobile as well. So I do that by creating collections of the photos. So I find this really useful to be able to look through, edit, pick and rate my photos using Lightroom Mobile on my iPad. I also can quickly access previous shoots when I'm out in the field, or I'm out and want to show some photos to some people. So it makes it a really great tool. To do that, you just go in and set a collection up, and you make sure that collection's synced. So for instance here, if I look at my 5-star photos, these are all the 5-star photos that I've taken, that I've starred as 5 stars, which I'll talk to you in a minute, and they are all synced with Lightroom Mobile, so I can get them at a low resolution on my iPad. So that's great. And then the other thing I do is use smart collections. So I use smart collections to pull together certain things, and then sometimes I just delete these smart collections after I've used them. But I always have 2 smart collections, one for my 5-star photos and one for my 4 and 5-star photos. So I grade my photos 3, 4 and 5 stars, and then I can quickly see some of the better photos that I've taken, and this is ordered chronologically, so I can go and see the most recent ones. Okay, going back to the folder for this Tiburon Ridge vlog. So when I get my photos into Lightroom, the first thing I would do is I'll go through them, and I will go through each one of them. I will look at each one of them and probably zoom in and check that they're sharp. If they're not sharp, I'll just delete them, I'll reject them, and then there's rejected photos I will just delete. If there's any other issues with them, like there's a massive lens flare or something like that, and then I'll also delete them. When I get to photos that I like, then I will flag them. So just clicking P on the keyboard allows me to flag those photos. And I'll also star my photos. So what I do is I go in and choose whether they're 3, 4 or 5 star. I mean, everyone can have their own rating, but I find this really useful when I want to go back and find photos that are of a certain quality. So 3 stars are good photos. I like them. I think they're probably the best photos from the shoot, but they're not amazing photos. I also have 4-star photos, which are probably some of the best photos I take that year, and 5-star photos. 5-star photos, I tend to end up at the end of the year with maybe 12 to 15 5-star photos. They're photos that have everything. They have an amazing composition, they have amazing light, and the subject's amazing. So Certainly on the shoot that I did on Tiburon Ridge in the last video, there was no 5 or 4-star photos. They were all 3-star photos. So this is the first one that I showed in the video. And this is that photo before it was edited. So here we can see it. So what I did was I, first of all, cropped the photo. So if I just go into the develop module, I first of all cropped the photo, and I didn't want this flare at the bottom here, so I just cropped in. I wanted this to lead in from the corner. I think it's a really strong lead in from the corner to this guy here who's walking his dog. And I also just wanted to crop in a little bit there, and I want to crop right down from the top. And I felt that was a better composition. Obviously there's a lens flare there, but that was easy to get rid of. I mean, I literally can just clone that out fairly simply. I've just done that roughly for now, but you can see that it's fairly easy to get rid of that. So the next thing was with this photo is that I felt it needed to be a little bit warmer. It was approaching sunset, so I just wanted to reflect that. So I just wanted to add some warmth into the photo. I feel like that's probably too much maybe, and yeah, that's a bit better. So the way that I use the right hand side now is that I go from the top down, apart from dehaze. So if I'm dehazing a photo, then I will do that first. In this photo I don't want to dehaze it because the whole atmosphere of the photo would just get ruined. So I would start and change the white balance. I might change the tint slightly just to find something that I thought looked good, and in this case I think it's not too far off. Then I would look at the exposure. I think the foreground probably just needs increasing exposure a little bit. I'm not too worried about these highlights up here because I can deal with those later. I can probably reduce the highlights a little bit on the whole shot though. So I'll just move that down. Again, shadows, I might come back to some of these. I might just increase that slightly. I might increase the white slightly. And yeah, that's not looking too bad. Probably just needs to be a little bit warmer, I think. So then clarity. These 3 things under presence, you need to be really careful with. You can ruin a photo quite easily with them. So I would change the clarity slightly on certain photos. I think on this photo, I don't think that'll add anything. I think it will just create a over sharp photo. So I might just increase it slightly. And what that does is it just increases the local contrast around edges in the photo. If you overdo it though, it looks awful. I may increase the vibrance and saturation. So the difference between vibrance and saturation is that vibrance just increases the saturation of the colours that aren't already saturated quite well, whereas saturation increases the saturation of all the colours across the board. I find that certainly in landscapes that just changing the vibrance gives a better rendition of the effect. I think vibrance is a much better tool to use than saturation, because if you increase saturation, then it can oversaturate some colours within your photo. Whereas if you just increase vibrance, then it brings up the colour density of the colours that are not already saturated. So in this photo, I'm just going to slightly increase the vibrance there. So that's not too bad. If I had some more time, I might get rid of that post there. I don't believe it's a bad thing to just remove some things from a photo. I'd never put things into a photo, but if I wanted to remove something, then I might do that. So the other thing on this photo is that the sky is almost burnt out. It probably is burnt out, to be honest. I'm not too bothered about that in this particular photo. Ideally, I would have changed that slightly, but what I'd always do in my photos is just change the... So I just use this graduated filter here, and this operates just like a graduation filter in the field, although it's better to do it in the field because then you've got a more dynamic range to work with later. So here you can see, if I just hover over this, what's going to be affected. And then with this bit here, I will probably just reduce the highlights a little bit more. I think that's probably all that it needs. Yep, and that is not too far off. In this particular photo, I'm not going to change the levels. I don't think I need to. Sorry, the curve, I don't think I need to. And the final thing to do is just add some sharpness. Don't think you don't want to overdo that either. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I will just enable profile collection for my lens and remove any chromatic aberration. And there we go. That is that first photo edited. Okay, let's have a look at a photo that I want to print. So this is a photo that I took on the day. It was right towards the end of the day. There really wasn't, well, there was no light on these rocks. And as you can see right back here where the city is, the light was quite subtle. It was quite sort of pastel in colour. I actually think this will make quite a good print. I think that although it's not the most dramatic photo, and I've given it 3 stars, I still think I quite like it. I quite like the diagonal line of these rocks. I quite like then that leads you to here, and then this leads you round where this path goes, which ultimately leads you to the city in the background. Again, the lines here lead you to this city. There's some good diagonals in it. So from a compositional point of view, I think it's good. I quite like the subject matter. The lighting could be better, so I've given it 3 out of 5 stars. But I'm going to go and print this photo. So the first thing to do is go into the print module within Lightroom. And in here, the first thing to do is check your page setup. So I'm going to go down to page setup, and I'm going to be printing on Super A3 paper. Click OK. Now obviously that's going to be too small. So the next thing I need to do is go in here and change the size of the cell. Now I want it to be almost as big as I can get it on the paper. So that's it. So that's the final thing to do. Now that's great. That if I just go down and print that will look great. However, what I usually do with a photo before I go to print it is subtly change some of the exposure. I think the exposure that looks best for a screen often doesn't look best for a print. Now I have calibrated my screen, and I always set the brightness depending on the lighting conditions in the room, which is really important. But I've just slightly, you can see the difference between these 2 pictures here. I've just slightly on this other version of this picture increased the shadows. So what I've done, if I go into the tone curve here, you can see I've just created a slight increase here in the tone curve, and what that's done is it's just slightly brought out some of the detail in the shadow detail here. So it's subtle, it's not huge, but that difference will help in the print. So going back to the print module, I then scroll down to the bottom here, and you can see I have set the print sharpening to normal. Media type is glossy because I'm printing on the Canson paper, which is of a sort of a semi-gloss paper. I have a profile for that particular paper. It's critically important that you get the right profile for the paper. You do not want to manage it by printer, you want to manage it by the profile. Relative intent, and then no print adjustments, you don't need to. The final thing to do is go into the printer. I then go into print settings, and you follow the settings as advised by the print manufacturer. And in this case, it's Premium Photo Semi-Gloss, 1440 DPI, high speed, finest detail. And we can go and print that. So let's go.